Totally fine. Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. I hope you had a great weekend. I know we certainly did. The weather turned, but we're still here and kicking. So tonight we are welcoming back our good friend. I don't know how to describe this man. Handsome, obviously very handsome. But best-selling author, investigator, tour guide, you name it, the guy's done it, Mr. Mark Egerton. So this has been a wee while in the making. We've arranged it a couple of times, but technical stuff was getting in the way. But we've finally got him back in tonight, and he's going to be talking. Well, I'll let him tell you what he's going to be talking about, actually. So good evening, buddy. It's good to be back at last. How are you?
We finally got sorted, Scott, didn't we?
We did. It was a bit of an uphill struggle. But once there's a Sarah watching, a bit of an uphill struggle, but we were determined and we got there in the end. Well, Mark did. I gave a wee bit of tech advice, which was very, very small in my department, and I don't know if it was much good, but he's here and his bits and bobs are all fixed and he's crystal clear in sound and in vision. So tonight he's going to be telling us all about the legendary Shuck, the devil dog.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
I'll hand the floor over to Mark, who's over that way. He's not that way, he's over there. So I'll hand you over to the man himself. Floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. The Black Shuck, you may or may not have heard of it. It's a legendary large black supernatural dog that is supposed to patrol the east of England, mainly Norfolk and Suffolk. There's been reports of it since the 16th century, probably goes back even further. The 16th century was about the time when people could actually read and write and document these things. But yeah, this Black Shuck is a large black dog, said to be about the size of a pony. It's got blazing red eyes. In some instances, some reports have reported just one eye in the centre of the head, which is about the size of a saucer. It sometimes howls and snarls, but apparently its feet don't make any sound, and other people have reported it as the actual feet being about an inch from the actual floor. So that would explain why there's no sound when it moves. It's generally been associated with trouble. If you actually see a Shuck, it's normally deemed as an omen. Somebody perhaps in your family is going to die very shortly. But on saying that, there are other stories about it, which are quite the opposite. We live in an area that is known as the Fens, and this area for many hundreds of years was underwater, all very marshy boglands. People could quite easily sort of steer off the path and end up in this sort of quicksand and drown or perish. And there are instances of the Shuck actually leading them to safety. Basically appearing on site and leading them to a safe path where they didn't actually encounter any problems. But generally speaking, it's seen as an evil being. There is a couple of really famous records of it. I think the most famous one was at Holy Trinity Church in a place called Blytheborough, which is in Suffolk, and this happened on the 4th of August 1577 in the church, when apparently during a great big storm this creature burst into the church and basically killed 2 people. And at that time the steeple fell in from the church, and the dog left to a lot of shouting and screeching, and as it left, its razor sharp claws left scorch marks on the door, and those scorch marks remain to this day on that particular door, and if you Google it or look on the web, you will find them. I sent Scott some pictures, which hopefully he'll post, and you can actually see the door. So whether that's legend or whether it's true. However, that wasn't finished. After that incident happened, it went to another church, which was St Mary's Church of Bungay, and it went into the church and apparently wrung the necks of two of the parishioners. They were bowing in prayer. This creature in one movement wrung the necks of two people. You then had an incident as he left, where there was another incident. I don't think there was any more fatalities. So on this particular night, which was the 4th of August, 1577, or this particular day, this thing wreaked havoc, and they are recorded. There was I'm trying to think now of his name, the Reverend of the second church, St Mary's in Bungay. He documented it, wrote it all down. So that's how we know what happened. And the interesting thing is, if Bungay is probably Shuck Centre. If you go to Bungay in Suffolk, you'll see things like the spire on the church. The weather vane is a dog, and lots of references to Shucks. They actually have a Shuck festival. I think I sent Scott a leaflet the other day that I happened upon online, where they were having a Shuck festival. So yeah, that's the dog. There are sightings in Cambridge, in Cambridgeshire. When I was writing my book, there are two reported sightings in Huntingdonshire, which I desperately wanted to put in my book, but there wasn't enough information. One of those happened at a place called Godmanchester in the 1950s.
There's a book. Just plugging your book for you, Mark.
Thank you.
I was very fortunate. Mark sent me a copy. Definitely worth a good read, folks. I'll just cut. Kate's asking, are you a fellow Anglican? I can't pronounce it. There is here. Anglican. She recognises.
Yes, I am. I was born in Huntingdon, and I was born within a mile of where Oliver Cromwell was born, who's a Marmite figure. People love him or hate him. Yeah, I was born here, and the book is about Huntingdonshire. So yes, I am an East Anglian,
and it's a big thing as well. There we go. That's your book plug, Mark.
Thank you. So yes, when I was writing the book, I wrote the book. It took me 2 years, between 2015 and 2017. These Shuck sightings really got me quite excited, and I wanted to include them in the book. There was this one at Godmanchester, which is near Huntingdon, where the dog supposedly walked down a place called the Causeway, which is probably the equivalent of the High Street in most towns. So that was pretty impressive. But the other sighting, which really intrigued me, was in the 60s. And that one occurred in the north of Huntingdonshire, and it was two poachers that reported it. They were out sort of at night poaching, and they stumbled across this dog with the red eyes, etc. But there just wasn't enough information about both incidents to give them credibility. So I decided to leave them out of it. But I'm not sure. I could have possibly put them in, but I didn't have enough information. Everything that's gone into the book has been researched and sort of checked and double checked. I found early on that the internet can't be relied on. And I spent a lot of my time in Huntingdon and local Cambridgeshire libraries looking at their archives and stuff. I did stumble across one. I don't know if I sent it to you, Scott. I found a newspaper cutting from a Norwich newspaper, which was dated about 1890 something. And in that cutting, it reports a Shuck being seen. So that was well over 100 years ago. Whether they're real or whether they're sort of legendary, I don't know. But they've stood the test of time. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, that sort of came off one of these sort of newspaper archives, and I just sort of searched Shuck, and that came up. Is there a date on that, Scott, at the top?
2 seconds. I'll need to take my specs off to read it. I'll need to find that again. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me.
Don't worry about it. I know it's 1890 something.
12th of August, 1899.
1899, yeah. I knew it was a while ago.
So it's come back.
So yeah, that's the Shuck, and as I said, in most cases, what was really interesting in, I think it was May. Again, you can check this online. In May 2014, they had some archaeologists that were doing a dig at a place called Leiston Abbey, which is only about 20 miles from Bungay, or round about that distance, not very far. And while they were excavating the abbey, they dug up these huge dogs, the skeletons of these huge dogs. The skeletons were, the archaeologists said that from looking at the skeletons, the dogs would have been 7 foot long, and they would have weighed in the region of 200 pounds. So reports of the Shuck generally describe it as the size of a pony.
I posted that photograph up on the page about 10 minutes ago, so everybody wants to see the photograph Mark's talking about. It is on the page, and I put another 2 up there as well, but the photograph of the skeletons are up on the page. No information about it, I just posted the page because I posted the page. I posted it on the page because it was kind of last minute. So any idea, where did the name Shuck come from? You know,
there's a few names. I can't do a Norfolk accent, but old Shucky is a name that they call it. You know, old Shucky. You know, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Amazingly enough, one of the places where it's been reported many occasions is on the beach at Norfolk. You know, these dogs have been seen on the beach. But in most cases, it's woodland areas and stuff like that. But as I said, that I know that in the city of Cambridge, there's been 2 Shuck sightings. One I remember was on a road called Arbury Road, which is quite a well-known road in Cambridge. And you'd probably be aware that you've probably seen things of Cambridge where you've got people out on the punts. Well, these punts, the waterworks there are known as the Backs, and there was a sighting of a Shuck down on the Backs. In fact, funny story, I went on a ghost tour in Cambridge, and the company were called Old Shuck Ghost Tours, and they took us all around the universities and round by the universities to the Backs, the water, and showed us the spot where this Shuck was supposedly seen. So that's quite interesting. So it's paranormal in the sense that we can't explain it, whether it still exists. I should say that dogs have been seen all over the UK. And obviously something that's been in the news lately is lots of large cats. This dog certainly, rather than the sighting of a large dog, some of the data that goes with it is not normal. Like its feet don't touch the ground; they sort of hover a foot above, an inch above the ground. I'm just reading on the screen here from Louisa that they were called is that Barcrest or Barquay? Yeah, they seem to appear all over the country. So whether the one in Yorkshire has got the same characteristics as the one that Shuck generally is East Anglia, what we call the Fens, and it was around at the time before the Fens were drained. So these towns that we see in the east, in Norfolk and Suffolk, would have been underwater or just marshland.
I mean, there's several stories which say. I remember years and years ago there was stories of some kind of big cat roaming about the Highlands in Scotland. It was roaming about the mountains, but the sightings were very spread out. You know, it was one every 20, 30 years or something, somebody would report, seeing this big cat, basically. These stories seem to have died down. Now, whether, I'm no one for dissing stories, people see what they see, but, maybe the cat passed away or, I don't know, whatever, but these stories seem to have died down. But I found that a lot of the stories are, animals, like the Shuck, for instance, they seem to be kind of territorial. You never hear of maybe the Shuck up in Carlisle or, further north.
I do know, obviously, I'm in Cambridgeshire, but I do know that down in the south of England, there's been a lot of big cat sightings recently. I don't know if you're familiar with ASAP, the organisation, paranormal organisation, but their members in the south of England have been reporting sightings of a abnormally large cat that's prowling around, but nothing about it that's paranormal, as in, it's just a large cat. It's moving perfectly like a normal cat. Oh, well, yeah, that looks exactly the same. Louise has just posted up here, and that sounds exactly the same as a description of some of the Shucks here. Interestingly, they've some people reporting with two eyes, red, and others with this one eye in the middle of the forehead that's about the size of a saucer.
I mean, you get different people, people see different things, just talk about the eyes, some people report two eyes, some people report one. Might sound a daft question. My questions usually are daft anyway. But do you think it could be two different animals that people are reporting seeing?
Well, I think that's logical. Or sometimes when people confront something that's frightening, whether it be a man chasing them with a knife or whatever than that, and they're asked to give a description to the police, you can make mistakes because you're frightened and the adrenaline's flowing and so on. So it's possible that, logically speaking, you'd say, well, obviously there must be two of them. If one of them's definitely it's only got one eye, and the others are saying it's got two, the question gets asked. But it's quite interesting.
As you see, one of the first reported sightings was back in the 1500s. So that's 500 years ago, roughly. My maths is crap, by the way. And it's the same as Nessie. I know it's totally different, but maybe similar. Nessie's been reported for centuries. This beast in the loch and blah, blah, blah. So, the Shuck has been reported being about since at least the 1500s, possibly earlier,
I think, Scott, you're right. It would have been earlier. You have to remember it was only around the 1500s that we started reading and writing and doing that. There was only very few people. I know, for instance, I did quite a bit of work on Samuel Pepys, and Pepys and his diaries is ultra famous, and people say, well, why? Anne Frank wrote a diary, and that was to do with the Second World War, but why is Pepys? He only wrote a diary for 9 years, but he was a meticulous recorder of details, and some very important things happened in English history or British history between 1660 and 1669, like the plague, the Great Fire, the monarchy resuming again, and things like that. And Pepys wrote that all down. So his records are probably the best we've got. And the reason that was because there was no newspapers, there was no sort of news reporting and the things like that. So I'm pretty sure that, some of these legends will go back much further back than that. And that's one of the reasons I think that a lot of people sort of say, oh, it's only folklore. But that was the only way to communicate something like that before we could read or write or had TVs and recorders and that type of thing. So I always generally say, with folklore, it probably gets shared and gets a little bit expanded to make it sound a bit more exciting. Generally, there's a grain of truth in it. So I don't think you should ever ignore folklore. Generally, there is a grain of truth at the back of that somewhere.
It's got to have started off somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, somebody's took the time to write about it, to describe it. And, you know, I doubt very much it's somebody sitting in a little hut in the 1500s thinking, well, I'm going to make up a story. You know, what can I write about? I'm going to make up this big black dog-like thing and just tell people that I've seen it. And scratch the door. And so there is a wee bit of grain of truth. And you're right, Mark, you know, way back, they didn't have television, nothing like that back then. So writing things down was the best way to keep records.
Yes.
It's the same as the Pendle Witch trials with Thomas Potts. He detailed the actual trials herself, you know, meticulously. I can't say that word. Precisely. I'll go with the word precisely. That's easier to say. And it's just because he wrote it down that we know what happened at the trial, who was there, who was accused, who was the judge, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so you know, these people that took time to write stuff down over the centuries, it should be read because it's stemmed from somewhere, you know. And it makes me wonder, that was back in the 1500s, this, you know, Shuck was first reported. And then it was, you know, I think it was the latest one in the 1960s, about then. So over 400 years, is it the same animal? Or is it, you know...
If it's a mythical creature like a ghost, then, you know, time is not of any interest, is it? You know, it could be there immortally. Sometimes with hauntings, you find that they can fade, and there's less sightings over a period of time. But the fact that there's been reports of it for such a long period of time suggests to me that there's something there. In fact, we're still talking about it in 2023, you know, and it was first reported sort of 500 years ago and probably was about before then, but nobody had the means to record it and report it.
As you see, we're still about it 500 years later.
Yeah.
You know, and we might not hear a lot about it, but we're still basically talking about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there must be. So, I mean, it's called, correct me if I'm wrong, as I say, I hadn't studied it because I was wanting to hear it first hand off yourself, but it's also called the devil dog.
Yeah, I mean, a devil dog is a sort of description that's been used, not just necessarily for the Shuck, but you've heard of sayings like the hounds of hell and stuff like that. The devil has these dogs. And I think because the creature was basically linked with, for a long time, linked with death. If you saw a Shuck, it was the sign that there was a death coming, basically, normally in your close family. And that was the belief anyway. But as I said, when I researched it, there are instances of these Shuck leading people to safety when they would probably be in peril of dying. The fens here were notorious when they were flooded. You had to know your way through them, and there's you probably heard of the will-o'-the-wisp and stuff like that. That was like methane gas, which would rise up, and it was just methane gas coming up and igniting. But within the fens, it was sort of part of the supernatural mystique, will-o'-the-wisp, or the spirit of the fens, or whatever they want to call it. But certainly, you know, place here in Huntingdonshire, for instance, called Ramsey. There was an abbey there, Ramsey Abbey, and at that time, Ramsey was actually not part of the UK mainland. It was an island. It was about a mile from the UK mainland, because until after the fens had been drained, and now we've got this wonderful black soil that is supposed to be the most fertile soil on the planet. I don't know if you've seen Fenland soil. It's black. You know, it really is. And so out here, you know, there's a lot of farming and vegetation because everything seems to grow. But that's only since the fens were drained. I think they were drained sort of over 3 centuries. I think it was the sort of 16th, 17th and 18th centuries, that different parts of it. Because you imagine it's a huge area, and they used technology from the Dutch. You know how the Dutch reclaimed land by pumping the water off it and stuff like that. They used these specialist Dutch engineers that have got vast experience in that. And now it's the most fertile place for growing stuff in the UK, and a lot of people believe the world.
One thing, just it's totally different for the shop. Just when you're saying about the marshland and what have you, the marshland was great for defence as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially at Huntingdonshire Castle, which is about 20 minutes drive from here. It's now the home of the Wallace Oak. We covered that, but before we were done a few weeks before the Oak ceremony, and I got a wee tour of the castle, which was really nice. But the tour guide was telling, we were up in the ramparts kind of thing, and she was showing us about the surrounding area, and she was saying it's very, very near the coast, and she says back in the 1100s this was all just marshland, and dating way back, and it was good because Vikings and what have you would try and invade Huntingdonshire Castle basically, but they couldn't get across the marshland.
No.
And
like I was saying about Ramsey, you may have heard of Ely Cathedral, or you may have heard it referred to as the Isle of Ely, and that's because at one time it was an island. It, when before the fens had been drained, it was surrounded by water. It was an island, and the cathedral sits on top of it. And basically as a defence measure, that sort of country is not the easiest thing to attack somebody, is it? When you've got to cross marshland and water and stuff. As for which is obviously the reason why people dug moats around castles and made it difficult for people.
To get across them. But not the Shuck. Say it is a fascinating story. Hopefully, has anybody ever sort of came really face to face with one or with it?
Well, not that I know of. Who most of these stories, like these ones, have been passed down. So there has been sightings. I remember reading about a sighting, I think on a Norfolk beach. I can't remember which beach it was, but the Norfolk beach is surrounding Hunstanton and all these seaside towns. And I believe it was filmed as well. And somebody analysed it and said that it moved like a dog, but it couldn't possibly be a dog, because even though it was filmed from a distance, they could still gauge the size of it, and they said it was too big to be a dog. So that caused a lot of interest, but unfortunately the film footage isn't that. You're not really close up enough to distinguish. It moved like a dog, they confirmed that, but they said it couldn't be a dog because it was too big, and it couldn't be a horse because it didn't move the way a horse moves. It moved like a dog. So that was, I can't remember what year that was, but in recent years, I haven't heard a great deal of Shuck sightings and that, but then they do suddenly sort of turn up. So I just find it fascinating that because the stuff that's linked to it it's not like these cat stories where, it's a big cat. Okay, God, we don't have big cats, so that's a bit scary. You've got these big cats, but it's just a big cat. With this, you've got sort of supernatural things as well. You've got these red eyes. You've got the fact that its feet don't touch the ground, and these people who basically felt it was an omen of death, and so on and so forth. So there's a paranormal element to it.
See, that's the thing. I'm wondering, is it one of these, creatures? I'm quite call it a creature, but I don't know what to call it, to be honest with you. That, as you say, the signs aren't constant. They're not every couple of weeks or every month or something. But is it maybe one of these things that show up before something big's going to happen?
Yeah, the thought that I've thought about it, Scott, is how could this thing possibly not be seen in an area like East Anglia? I mean, it's a big area, but it's not massive. It's not like in America where they talk about these Bigfoots and things where you've got literally hundreds of miles of forest where a creature like that could remain hidden. East Anglia is fairly well populated. There's lots of people live in East Anglia. So the factor that sort of brought my interest was, is this actually a physical being, or is it like a ghost, an apparition, and something like that? Is it something from the devil? I don't know. It could be anything. I'm not really into believing too much in the devil and him sending hounds to collect people and that, like the Grim Reaper and all that sort of stuff. But it's an interesting concept that it's shown up. And if it was a live animal, like these big cats are, supposedly, I couldn't see how it could escape being seen. It'd have to eat, it would have to drink, and I can't see how it would escape being seen.
Exactly. It's not, I mean, I'm not dissing the story or saying it's a load of trollop or anything, but if it was a sort of living, solid animal, then I just think there'd be more sightings of it.
Yeah, I agree.
There are stories out there, and I've heard, some, and they're just ludicrous. There was one woman reported that there was a werewolf on her roof, and it was ripping the roof apart and during the day and stuff like that. And then this other guy tried to say there was a werewolf in the Edinburgh area. There's not a lot of forest in the Edinburgh area because it's a big city. And, there's a werewolf in Edinburgh. He went actually looking for it, the loony. He went looking in a public park, and so there are a lot of stories out there that are just, they take quite a bit of swallowing, but say the Shuck, if it was a living, breathing animal, then I think there would be more sightings of it somewhere. As you say, that is quite, as largely populated. There's a lot of people about, in a lot of different areas. So somebody would have seen something,
Yeah, I sit a little bit on the shelf with it because from my point of view, I'm not sure whether I believe it or I don't, but I am open-minded. I've been involved with the paranormal for 40 years, and I would never, or very rarely, say that doesn't exist. I mean, if you follow some of the paranormal stuff in the USA, every other story involves a demon. In 40 odd years, I've never ever come across anything that's a demon. I've come across stuff that's perhaps a little bit unpleasant and unsavory, but I've never come across a demon. But I wouldn't turn around and say that such things don't exist, even though, all I can say is from my experience, I've seen one ghost in my life. That was in 1976 when I was 15, and I embarked on this journey thinking, I'm going to see ghosts all the time. I've never seen another one. I've witnessed poltergeist activity on a number of occasions, but seen things moving and had people with me who've seen the same thing. So I've not made a mistake. But actually seeing a ghost, I think, is very, very rare. That's purely from my experience.
Well, that is, you see, the demon, that's a whole other, so, the demon thing. Yeah, I do believe there is demons somewhere in some kind of, in fact, Lisa Winfield, her husband, Ben, he's a demonologist, the guy knows his stuff. And he told me once that the chances of something being, now, Lisa, I might get this wrong, but I'm sure it was 0.0001%, something like that. Very, 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 very rare. But I do believe there are demons in some form, some kind of realm somewhere, but do they pop up at paranormal investigations? And no, I don't think so. It's just, to me, it's just a grumpy spirit, a grumpy bum. That's what it is. It's not a demon. It's a grumpy bum. And these people, the other thing that gets me is these people, we're doing a show next month, we're actually proclaim to be ordained exorcists.
Oh, yes.
And let's say there's a few of them about.
Yeah, no.
We know that there are people who are ordained by the church, etc., that have done their time, done the training, what have you. I will talk about them. genuine. I'm talking about these other loonies that say they can go in and clear houses and stuff, you know. And I know you've got over 40 years experience in this game, Mark, you know, so I mean, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So these people say I can get and clear it. They can clear it with a vacuum cleaner and a duster proper. That's about it, you know. But it's when they go on, I'm an ordained exorcist. You think, well,
yeah,
who's ordained you? You know.
Yeah, I it's a bit like, you know, with mediums. I've been dealing with, over those 40 years, a lot of mediums, and I would say these are just figures I'm plucking out of my head from my own experience, that 90% of the mediums that I've encountered are either fraudulent and looking for financial gain, or they've got quite a big ego and they like to be the center of attention and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, 10%, I have met a few mediums in my time who have been quite extraordinary, and they've told me things they couldn't have possibly known. So, you know, there are people who seem to have that gift, but I would say they are, you know, 10%. And a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, can you recommend a medium?" and stuff like that. And I generally say, go by word of mouth from friends who you trust, who've used them, and basically like that. Because, you know, I could turn up and say, "Oh, I'm a medium, Scott. You know, basically pay me 50 quid and I'll tell you."
I mean, it's after I've seen this in many shows. Lisa said, yes, most people who say they've come across a demon, it's usually a nasty human spirit pretending. Exactly, though. Exactly. The mediums, I know 2 or 3 people who obviously are the real thing. You know, but as you say, that there's many other ones out there. Anybody can say, right, I'm a medium. You know, that's fair enough. If you're going to claim you're a medium, then back it up.
Yeah.
Tell me something that nobody else could know. I mean, it's happened to me many years ago. I went to a spiritualist church and it was a lady in her 50s, and she told me about my daughter who had passed away, told me her name, told me about an ex-girlfriend who had passed away, where she passed away, how it happened, told me about my dad, you know, stuff. Yeah. And I'd never been to this place before. This was the first time I'd went to this particular church. Yeah. Stuff that and I was one of the nothing really shocks me, but it was one of the, after I sat in the car, and I don't know, good 15, 20 minutes maybe, I just sat there, you know, flabbergasted before even started. Yeah. I just sat there thinking, did that just happen? Did that woman just tell me all that stuff? And my ex-wife, my wife at the time, I went home and told her. She didn't believe it. I said, well, how could she tell me about, you know, Donna was my daughter's name. How could she tell me about Donna?
Yeah.
How does she know that? I don't know, but it was fake.
Yeah.
But there are people out there that, as you say, you know, give me £50, I'll tell you about your dead granny. You know,
I'd say as well that there are a lot of people out there that enjoy. I've seen it on paranormal investigations. You're on an investigation and an individual or two, I'm sensitive, and you know, something gets suggested. No, that's not happened. This is what's happened here, and you know, I think they like to be the centre of attention and basically think that they've got something that you haven't got, rather than a true gift. That's just my opinion. Other people might not agree, but I've been doing this a long time, and I would say that you know, 90% of them are not what they say they are. There are some with this terrific gift. Talking back a little bit about demons, interesting story. I can't remember if I've told you this before, but in 2015, I did an investigation at a place called the Ramsey Rural Museum. And we were up in the stable block. They've got a stable block, and it would all been done up with basically World War II relics. And I took we were on the upper floor, and I took a picture of this place with the lights on. And then we started a vigil, and we decided to do some glass work. And we were working with a glass in the dark, just had a little torch so that we could see what was going on. and the glass started to move. And one of my colleagues, who's very experienced, she is psychic, she got very upset, and she said she was scared. She said, I've got to get out of here, Mark. I've got to get out now. I've got to go now, you know. And we basically, in those situations, I was taught by a very famous man called Peter Underwood. And he said, you know, if you're in a situation where you feel threatened or uncomfortable, the thing that you do is you tell whatever it is. We could see nothing because we were in the dark. You tell it that it's not welcome. You don't welcome it in any way, and that you're leaving. And then you get up, Mark, and you leave. And that's what I did. As we were leaving, I said to Mel, the lady concerned, I said, just take a picture looking down this stable block, the aisle of it. And she said, well, I've got no flash working on it. I said, just take a picture anyway. And we were out. We didn't realise till the next day that we got this picture, and there appears to be a figure in it. And I was at the Ghost Club last month, and the guy who was the speaker, his name was Dale. I can't pronounce his second name. It's I've probably got it actually somewhere around. Dale Kazmakerrick. I don't know if you can see that guy. Well, he's an expert. He's been doing it for 30 odd years. And I said to him, look, can I send this photograph to you? And he said, yeah, you can. And I said, analyze it and see what you think. And he basically said that he'd done all these things with it and manipulated it, and he checked it. If you look at the first picture, and which is in daylight, and then you look at this picture that we've captured, I don't think you will be able to see it there, what we've actually captured, or can't get it in the camera. But there appears to be a figure there, and he couldn't find any explanation for it. He says, I think you've definitely caught something paranormal. Can I put it on my website? I can happily send you the stuff if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great if you put them
on your own site. I'll share the story with you. So yeah, that was really interesting. But this figure, when it appeared, I'm not psychically sensitive, but what I noticed, we were in the dark, so I couldn't see anything. But I noticed how cold it got, and we could actually see our breath condensing. And even though it's dark, we could see that, but you couldn't see anything. She took this picture blindly. We couldn't see because the lights were off, and the light switch was downstairs. So anyway, we evacuated. Around about 30-40 minutes later, I had to go back. And when I went back, the atmosphere was better. I wouldn't say it was normal, but what I did notice is my breath wasn't condensing anymore. So bearing in mind it was at night, if it was getting later, in theory, it would be getting colder. So my breath should have still condensed, but it didn't. So that was interesting. But he has analysed it, and I've actually printed what his emails said, that he couldn't explain it. He felt it was paranormal and wants me to give him all the details to put it on his own website in the USA. So that's quite interesting.
I mean, there's a comment here, just I don't know who's Facebook user. Churches and mediums doing services, it costs us a couple of quid to go. If you get a message that knocks your socks off, you just know. That's right. As far as I remember, it was a donation. You leave a donation as you went in the door, for what I remember. But no, if you do get a message, then you know yourself. And as I say, I sat in the motor for 20 minutes, something like that, you know, just, I wasn't even looking, I was just staring at the windscreen, just sat there, just staring, thinking, did that actually happen? But photographs, and we've took some photographs, you know, since we started, and you think you see something in them, and then you look again and think, no, I never seen anything in them. And a lot of people get offended when you say, you know, there's nothing in that photograph, there's nothing there. But I think, you know, if you're going to, any photographs we've got that we think there's something there, that we used to put up on the old page, and we used to just say, we can't explain this. What do you
Yeah.
see? Yeah, I know get these groups, no disrespect to them, but they'll put a photograph up and they'll circle here, circle there, arrows, and by the time they're finished drawing on it, they've actually covered up what you meant. You don't know what you meant.
I must admit, this image, and I'll send it to you, Scott, after the show a bit later. I thought, could this be pareidolia? And the good thing is because you've got two pictures. You've got one with the lights on and one with the lights off. And there's a rope running down the right-hand side that they've just roped off an area, and you can see this rope on both images, so you can use it as a reference. And there's nothing in the picture with the lights on that could have possibly made the shape that's in the picture. And that's basically what this guy in America found, this Dale. He came over to the Ghost Club especially to speak about his work. He does a lot on the, these Gettysburg and these American Civil War sites and hauntings. He was telling me that a lot of them, I don't know if you've seen these YouTube figures of American Civil War soldiers. He said that they run across the track when someone's captured them, and they really look convincing. He said they're faked. He said, we've basically analysed them and stuff like that, the film and the footage, and what you see, although it looks authentic, it's actually faked.
I know there's a couple of famous photos of Gettysburg. One, I know you've probably seen it. I think it's 4 or 5 soldiers with grey uniform kind of standing in a bunch of trees. And there's another one, a single gentleman with grey uniform on. Looks as if he's walking, but he's looking over in the direction of the camera. He's walking that way, but he's looking kind of that way. I don't know if they're fake or whatever. But I do remember seeing the photographs. But you mentioned the Ghost Club. This was the next thing I wanted to come on to. I know you were in London yesterday, which is fantastic. I'm jealous because I love London. Apart from the traffic in London is a nightmare. That's the other thing I was going to ask you about. I know you're quite a frequent visitor to London. Anytime I went there, I've got a friend who's in Putney. I would just park the car at Putney and take the train in to, at the city centre. I know you're quite an avid, frequent visitor. How did it go? The Ghost? Can you tell us a bit about the Ghost Club?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, the Ghost Club is something that I first sort of touched base with in 1976 when I was 15. Yesterday, I was very privileged. They asked me to, I'm a Ghost Club member, and they asked me if I would be their speaker. So I gave a speech for them. But if people want to know about the Ghost Club and its history, it's something that I do know a bit about, and I'm quite happy to share that with you if you want to hear it. Mm-hmm. The Ghost Club is now based in London, but it actually came about not far from me, around about 18 miles from where I sit now in Cambridge. The Ghost Club was formed at Trinity College in Cambridge in the early 1850s, although it didn't become founded until 1862. But they were playing around with it then, and these were all university fellows, lecturers, academic type people, and they basically sort of came off the back of spiritualism which had arrived from America, and this question, is there life after death, which obviously ties in with ghosts and things like that. So that was the origins of the Ghost Club. And in those days, it was very, very. You couldn't join the Ghost Club; you had to be invited. Mm-hmm. And they were all academics from either Cambridge or Oxford, or celebrities. And I'm just trying to think of. I'll go through these celebrities, and you'll be quite impressed probably. Ghost Club members: Charles Dickens,
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1812, if my memory serves me rightly, and obviously is a famous writer, but probably best known for A Christmas Carol, which contains ghosts. Another famous Ghost Club member was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He was born in 1859.
Mm-hmm.
Sherlock Holmes, his most famous thing. What's one of Holmes's most famous stories? The Hound of the Baskervilles, based on Black Shuck. So that's where he got the inspiration from. Conan Doyle for his Hound of the Baskervilles came from the Black Shuck legend. Anybody interested in World War II will probably heard of Field, what's his name, Lord Dowding, Hugh Dowding. His big wing. He was the man who was in charge of our aircraft, defending Britain from the Luftwaffe. He was a Ghost Club member. There was a couple of poets as well. Siegfried Sassoon. He was a World War I poet. 1886. He was born. There was W. Yeats, William Butler Yeats, Irish poet. He was in there. Had a prime minister, Arthur Balfour. He was born in the 1850s. He was an MP, I think, from 1902 to 1905. And a lot of these people, their background, their education was at Cambridge University, and they were at Trinity College. So Trinity College really was where it all started. They used to have a meeting at Trinity College. Anyone that knows Trinity College will know that at the front of it, it's got a huge, big door, massive door, 20 feet high or something like that. And above it are some rooms, and they used to meet in one of those rooms above the door. And when they had their annual general meeting every year, they made a vow that if any of them died, they would come back and attend the AGM. And so when some of them did inevitably die, members of the Ghost Club, there was always an empty seat laid out for them at the meeting. So that was quite interesting. But the Ghost Club had a huge bearing in me. Oh, another Ghost Club member, if anybody's watched the Hammer horror movies, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing was a Ghost Club member. Yeah, what was I telling you? Yes, when I had my first paranormal experience and saw my only ghost in 1976, basically I was only 15, and I rushed home to tell my mum and I was quite excited, and she was hugely supportive. She said, "Don't be so bloody stupid," and that would have probably been the end of it. But my mother had a sister who lived at Verwood in Dorset, and she told her on the phone that, Mark's come home, silly idiot, reckons he's seen a ghost, blah, blah, blah. And Marilyn's husband was a guy called Trevor Kenwood, and Trevor Kenwood was a Ghost Club member, 25 years plus. And his cousin was a very famous paranormal investigator called Peter Underwood. Underwood was president of the Ghost Club from 1960 till 1991, and he's written about 60 books on the subject. And if you're into Peter Underwood and have read any of his books, he often mentions when he's on investigations and he's writing about them, he mentions Trevor Kenwood and sometimes Marilyn. Marilyn did a lot of the admin for him. So yeah, I've got sort of links to the Ghost Club. I didn't actually join it myself until about 10 years ago.
So it's no, I know people say, the Ghost Club sounds like, just a group of guys sitting in somebody's house, talking ghosts, so it is quite a, how do you put it, respectable, and I'm not sure the prestigious, whatever, kind of club,
In the original, I don't know if you noticed those names I read out to you. They were all men. There was no women allowed. they were only mainly celebrities, or they were highly educated university fellows or dons or lecturers and so on and so forth. Times have changed. The Ghost Club now is accessible to anybody, really. They've got members all over the world. Some of them, you can go online and Google the Ghost Club and you'll find their website and you can apply to join. It's quite a lengthy application that you have to go through. And basically you pay, I think it's 35 quid a year to be a member. And what do you get for that? You get a quarterly journal, which is like a magazine, really. The Ghost Club have a meeting every month, or an event every month. It's normally a meeting. I happen to know that the one in August is actually a walk, but generally it's a meeting with a speaker. I was their speaker yesterday. They're all in London. So, but there's people on the other side of the world that are Ghost Club members. And if you pay your 35 quid, all the meetings are recorded. So on their website, mine won't be on there from yesterday yet, but it will eventually. You can see the speaker. So you can take part, even though you're not actually there in London. You can watch them. And I think what else you get. Occasionally they organise. It's funny enough, the president of the Ghost Club, Alan Murdy, he lives in Edinburgh now. He's moved from London to Edinburgh. He's a barrister, so he's in your neck of the woods.
Might need to look him up then.
Yeah, Alan Murdy, Edinburgh. He's a barrister. He's the sort of top man. I can send you some info on Alan. Alan's actually an East Anglian. He's from Suffolk, originally.
If you maybe, you send me his info, then we can maybe try and get him on with yourself, a wee Ghost Club conflab, possibly.
Yeah, he's Alan's. He's the president. I don't know how long he's been president now, but I do know that it's only quite recently, in the last year or two, he's moved to Edinburgh. His wife's job moved there, and so he's a barrister, so he can work anywhere. So he's a barrister in Edinburgh now. But getting back to the Ghost Club, if people were interested, they just go on the website, and there's a tab called membership, and it's 35 quid. I'm sure it's 35 quid a year. And there is quite a lengthy form to fill in, why are you interested in this? Have you had experience, blah, 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 and stuff like that. But basically you apply and they say yes or no. I imagine they might, like most clubs, they're quite happy to have you 35 quid. But it's not the way it used to be, where, you had to be an eminent blooming academic, or you had to be and there's people on there, members, that are skeptics, and it's really good, because when we have a meeting like we did yesterday, there's generally then an open debate. Yesterday there was probably about 40 to 50 people there, plus the council from the Ghost Club. And I did my thing and made a presentation, and then we had a discussion after it. But if you go on their website and you search, you can find stuff. I'm not sure whether you can get into their website itself until you're a member. You'll have a password and everything like that. But once you're a member, you've got access to everything there. But if people want to join and they feel that you get a quarterly magazine, and you get a meeting every month if you want to go to it. I mean, that's not really helpful to you but they did Alan Murdy did a ghost walk in Edinburgh for the Ghost Club. People travelled up there and did a ghost walk with him. So
I'll need to give him a look up. As you were saying about the skeptics in it, but that's a good thing.
Yeah.
In it, and debate. I had a run in with a guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but last week he seemed to just be on a personal mission to attack really folk in the chat will know who I'm talking about, to attack every single area of the paranormal, you know, and he was challenging folk to have me on your podcast. He's just looking to get famous, basically, you know. And he was just ripping the paranormal apart. And you know, he was trying to bait people, and I was one of these guys. I fell for him Thursday, and I had a running with him on Thursday, comments wise and what have you.
Is he the guy? I won't say his name, but he's been all over Facebook, and he's really aggressive. He's basically saying paranormal's a load of crap with your cat balls and everything else, load of rubbish. The same guy.
That's the kitten, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that, and basically, I thought to myself, I'm not even going to get involved with this, because it's obvious that you're putting this out here to get a reaction, and there must be a reason behind that, because he's been involved with TV, hasn't he?
James Whale, he was on the James Whale show or something.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. I think basically, and I could see straight away what he was doing. He was caught in an argument. He's trying to get people in, and he's actually being quite insulting to people.
That's what got me. I think that's because he'd been at it a few days, and it was like one after another, you know, just bang. And I mean, you know yourself, Mark, you get all the time, you know, folk will get ripped into the paranormal and blah blah blah. But so you probably read some of it. There is always one though, but it was crossing that line, you know. We can all have a laugh with each other and call each other names with respect, but it's humour, you know. It's a bit of banter, as we say. But he was just,
well, I think when he was pressed, because I sort of watched, I followed a couple of threads, and when he was actually pressed, he sort of made it out. I was only joking. I was only having a laugh, you know. And I thought, well, actually, you know, what you said, you're insulting people quite badly here. You're trying to solicit a reaction, and so I didn't fall for it. My grandfather used to have a theory, which I've seen him use. He's long dead now, but when you get people like that, you agree with them. Everything they say, you say, yeah, you're right. And in the end, they've got nothing else to say.
I've done that for years, and I've told, you know, many people that, you know, if you're getting bullied or getting slagged off, you know, when I was younger, people found it very hard to slag me because I would just agree with them. So you're baldy, and your specs say, I'm baldy, and you're ugly. Say, I know, I'm one of the ugliest gits you'll ever meet. And they would stand there thinking, you know, I can't slag him anywhere because he's agreeing with everything I said. So I totally get what your grandfather was saying, because it is the best way. But he was just getting, best thing to do is just ignore him and hopefully he'll go away. That's what I was doing, Lisa. But just some of the comments last Thursday, I thought, you know, they were just hard to stomach, and he crossed that line, and I tried to say to him, because he was saying that we go out and we mimic TV shows during investigations. I said, we don't mimic any TV shows or any other teams. We go and we do our own thing. You know, sometimes we get nothing, sometimes we get stuff. We don't, you know, we're not interested in fame and blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's good to have a debate. You know, we all need a debate, but there's a difference between having a respectful debate and just an outright slanging match. I said, there's a line. I said, and you've crossed that line. So if you're going to disagree with something, and do it with respect. I mean, let's face it, we all know, Mark, we don't agree 100% of the time. There's going to be things that say, oh, he's an idiot for doing that. But you keep it to yourself, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like religion, isn't it? You know, it's one person's one religion, one person's another, and you get conflict. What I can tell you, actually, which might be of interest, if you've got anybody out there listening who is interested in joining the Ghost Club and they decide to do that, and they get the opportunity to come to one of the monthly meetings in London, they're generally in old Victorian pubs. They have a function room upstairs, you know, big enough to hold 50 people roughly. That's the normal encore. But the Ghost Club people, they're a mixture of people who are really into the paranormal and skeptics. and the debates after the speaking and that is it gets quite feisty at times, but not nasty in a way. But what they do if you ever go to the London meetings, is they like a good drink afterwards. So they go down into the pub then, and everyone, there's a few drinks served. They're a good crowd. I quite like them. But,
it's just, Lisa, I unfriended them. Lisa knows who we're talking about. Interested in seeing all that negativity because on my feed. She's right. It was just, I think I've unfriended them now as well. He sent me a friend request and I foolishly accepted. Luckily, I don't know who it is. I'll PM you, doll, and tell you who, or Lisa would tell you who it is. But it was just constant. Every time they looked on Facebook, I was there bang. Here's another one. Here's another one. I think the guy slept in a week. Between that and fixing his hair.
It's like got brill cream hair too, isn't it? He looks like a blooming roadrunner.
I thought 1980s or what? Do you know what I mean? Not that I can slag anybody's hair, because I don't have any, sir. But it was like 1980s, flock of seagulls kind of thing. Anybody remembers them? I don't know if they do or no. The group, that's me giving away my age. But no, I know what you mean. And you say the Ghost Club, they get together, they do their thing, and then they can have a debate, and it can turn quite fiery, which is fine. I've had debates before, and they've turned, start to get a wee bit, not nasty, but a wee bit heated. But you always know that line.
The Ghost Club ones, Scott, they have a debate, and they're positive in putting their point across, and if they don't agree with somebody else, you basically, it doesn't get heated as in sort of aggressive or nasty or sort of like he was doing. He was basically calling people this and that with your little kitty balls, and basically trying to provoke a reaction. It's I just looked at it and I thought, I want to tell you what I think, but I'm not going to, because that's what you want. You want confrontation. So I'm guessing he's doing something that's what was his name? James Randi, the next James Randi. Has he seen himself as one of those?
So ego was, and I'll be honest, I was tempted to get, to say, right, come on to a show to rip you a new one, but then I thought, no, because that's what he's wanting.
Yeah.
And as much as I'd like to get him on and rip him a new one, basically, I thought, I'm not going to give you what you want. No, because he's saying quite a few other people, we'll get him on your podcast and we'll chat about it, or we'll challenge it if you dare. And maybe somebody out there will take the hook, take the bait, but I thought, no, I want to, but I'm not going to. I'm not giving you your no fame, but I'm not going to give you your whiskey. He's just going to add another couple of bricks on your ego. And there's no need for that. There's no time for that. And, I told him, we're just a simple team for Scotland. We're nothing fancy. We go out and we do our own thing. And that's we got on with it. But this guy seemed to have an issue with that. You're copying TV shows. I'm thinking, what stock of rock did you just slide down? Because it's not the same one. They also made the right decision not to have him on to talk. Well, as I said, though, I was tempted. He was one of the guys. I just want to get hold of this guy and rip him apart. But then the other is like the devil and the angel on the shoulder. Devil's like rip him apart. The angel's like that. Don't give him the time of day, sort of thing. And the angel won. I've always met the angel won. But I unfriended him. I'm sure I unfriended him, and he got offered the chance to apologise on some show, and he didn't bother. So, he's dug his own hole, and I think he might just disappear hopefully disappear after a couple of months.
I think there's a hidden agenda there. The frequency of his posts, and the way he was writing them. He was writing them basically insulting people to court an argument, and I'm thinking, why would you want to do this? What would you gain from doing this? and there must be something. And so I think he's probably got another agenda, and it's something to do with, it could be TV show or something like that, where, I don't know, but you don't go around, I don't think, insulting people he doesn't even know, and so many different people, that I thought it was a bit bizarre.
You just don't do it. I say, I know you normally love to have them on. I would have, but he would have loved it, and you would have lost it with him. I would have went, train right through him. You don't need it. I mean, it's the paranormal. This is what gets me sometimes. I don't know your opinion, Mark. Also, as I said earlier, 40 plus years. There's a lot of competition in the paranormal these days. Do you think? Do you know? And I'm not saying the whole but there's certain bits of the paranormal that people are turning it into a competition. They have to get the best capture, the best team, blah, blah, blah. Now, I like your opinion on this, buddy. My opinion is there is no such thing as the best team.
I think, to be honest, from my perspective, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and it's very much a subject that probably you don't really fully understand it unless you've witnessed paranormal activity yourself. And then once you've actually witnessed it for yourself, you know that it exists, and you're sure it does. I think there's a lot of other people who are involved with it who haven't actually witnessed it themselves, but they're pretty sure that it does exist, and they want to witness it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think the way paranormal teams or individuals go around investigating the paranormal they have different methods, and what's the right method and what's the wrong method. I was very fortunate to be trained by Peter Underwood, so I'm not necessarily sure that he is his methods were the best. So the way I am, I'm always open to see what other people are doing and think to myself, I could perhaps try that. I've been in paranormal investigations and nothing's happening, and I think, well, I'd almost try anything now, and sometimes I think of something which I've never done before, and you get something happen. But yeah, there is a bit of competition. There's, how many members have I got in my Facebook paranormal group and stuff like that. I sort of don't do stuff like that, really. It just doesn't bother me. There's quite a lot of people follow the two Facebook groups that I do, but I don't make a fuss about it or anything like that. Or so, I've got 2,500 members, So.
I've always said that, we're not obsessed with followers. We appreciate every single member we've got. But I like to see our numbers going up because it lets me know that, it's not we're trying to be the best. We never will be the best or special or anything like that, any of that crap. I like to see the numbers going up because it lets us see that people are enjoying what we do.
Yeah.
Enjoying our content, whether it's a live or our investigations or footage stories, whatever it is, people enjoy it. And it lets us know that, we're doing what we love. People are enjoying it. So we keep going in that kind of direction. It's like anything, really, if your member numbers start just plummet, you lose 200 members, you think, right, well, what's went wrong? What we done different? So you start, but if your numbers are going up and up, then you think, well, we're obviously on the right track here. We're not trying to overtake anybody. We're not interested in, that crap, as I say, but it lets you know that you're doing something right. But there are teams out there that follow us, subscribe to us, follow us, subscribe, bang back. It's constant thing. I would rather we'd never ask people to follow us or sub us, because my way of thinking is I would rather someone subbed us or follows because they want to, not because they've been asked to, or they feel, oh well, the guy says he's going to follow, so I better just do it. I would rather they came to us because they want to, if that makes sense. I mean, cheers, Walt. Thanks for coming in. But there is too many people out there obsessed with building their numbers up.
Yeah.
It's not what the paranormal's about. You know,
Well, I don't, as you know, I don't do any shows as such. I basically go out and paranormal investigate. I've got a sort of I've got a sort of set and tried regime now. I normally write between 300 to 500 words on a Facebook post, and it's the history of a place, and then it's the paranormal activity that occurs there. But I back that up with as many photos or decent photos as I can find. So, and I found that that's a similar format to what I've done with the book, as you know. There's a lot of photos in it, and you know, people read it and then they can see the photos. And I think the photos, you know, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words or whatever it is, and I think it does. They're people that are interested in the subject, and they generally then tell their friends that, yeah, I quite enjoyed this, or they will tag their friends, and that's how the membership has gone up on mine. But I mean, when I started it, I just did the book had its own Facebook page, but everything on that page was Huntingdonshire, nothing else. And then people were saying, well, is it all just Huntingdonshire you go in? Do you not go anywhere else? Because Huntingdonshire is only sort of 35 miles north to south and 25 miles east to west. So not a very big area. And I said, yes, of course I go other places. And so I started another group, Haunted History, and where I put stuff outside of Huntingdonshire. And that seemed to work well. Yeah.
It's also amazing that I've found this in the past few months, how many people are actually interested in the paranormal, but they're no in the paranormal, they're not in any groups or anything.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, for instance, we had the housing inspector the other day to sign off on this, and she came in here. You know, I keep this up all the time. You know, this stays up, and she came in and says, "What's that?" So I get, you know, I said, this is what we do. I love all that kind of stuff. She's just a young lassie, you know. She's an inspector, and she said, "I love all that. What's your group called? I'm going to join so I can have a look." And it was the same when there was darkness in one of the rooms, and the guy, the sort of boss guy, came out, and he saw the stuff and he said, "What do you do?" And he says, "Send me the link to your group. I want to join." And he's local to you, so I see him about, and he's obviously, "I enjoyed your wee show the other night. I enjoyed this the other night." You know, and it's people that you would probably never ever meet. But it's surprising how many people out there are actually interested in the paranormal, but they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
You know, they can look up YouTube, you know, Ghost Adventures, Most Wanted, whatever. But quite a few people don't have a clue, you know, where to go to learn about it.
I think, to be honest, you're right, there are a lot of people out there, and I think the reason, like you say, that they don't know how to take it to the next step. And so in most cases, in paranormal groups, you've got a person who's a member. This is people who are going out and investigating, and you know their mate says, I'd not really like to do that. Well, why don't you come along and try it? But if you haven't got a friend that's doing it, and you're just going out there blind and you don't know anything about it, it must be quite daunting. Think, God, I'm going into a building that's supposed to be haunted. I don't know anybody who. If I'm going with this group, I don't know anyone. I don't know what equipment I've got to take. I don't know what the protocol is, what the etiquette is, and so on and so forth. Hopefully, if you join a group, you get told all that. But you know, I think that it is difficult for people. I've had loads of people say to me, funny enough, I've got a friend. I went to off track slightly. I went to Australia to watch a football match 10 years ago. Watched Liverpool.
Go for a football match. You not heard that television?
Well, long story short, my family have been involved with Liverpool Football Club since it was started, 1892. So they were playing in Australia for the very first time. So I felt I needed to go. So I went. Anyway, that's beside the by. while I was there, I met this New Zealand couple, a man and his son. The son was about 13, and they'd come to watch the game, and we got talking, and as you do, and their dream was to come to England. And as it happens, the father is in England at the moment, and he was up in Scotland, and he rang me, and I was on the speakerphone, obviously, and he says, "Oh, we were talking about what I do with the paranormal and stuff," and he said, "I've got this lady called Moira next to me," and this Scottish lady, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm into all this, tell me what you do." And she was a sort of trainee medium and everything else. She was really into it, but it just goes to show you how popular the paranormal is now.
It is amazing, and it's just a shame that there are, and there's always going to be some balloons in it, shall we say. But I think we'll wind it up there. That's times. Yeah, I just noticed the time there.
Yeah.
So now I want to get you back on, because we're getting a conversation with the paranormal and what have you, and I want to get you back on anyway, to a conversation about that. And so where can people find you? And no, don't say in your house. Don't say in your house.
Well, basically, Facebook. The book is called The Haunted History of Huntingdonshire, and there is a Facebook page by it. Or if you just Google Mark Egerton Paranormal, there's lots of references, but it will lead you either to the website, the book's website, where it's got a contact tab on it, or alternately, you can find me on Facebook, and there's a couple of paranormal groups that I run on there, which people tend to like. Lots of Scottish places on there in Scotland that I've covered.
Mm-hmm. I definitely want to find out when COVID closes down. That was the only good thing that came out of lockdown for me. I think the lockdown did harm the paranormal, but it kind of helped as well. I know it helped us with doing these podcasts. We've even never started doing them if lockdown hadn't happened. So I don't think we would still have been going, if lockdown hadn't happened. Because we just started. We've done a couple of investigations, then we got locked down. We thought, right, what can we do? And we thought, well, why don't we just talk to people? So, that kind of worked for us. I'm going to plug your book again, young sir.
Thank you.
You can see that? You see, I do keep it handy. Haunted History. Because I made an easier title. So, Haunted History of Huntingdonshire.
You can get a Kindle version on Amazon. There are a couple of places, again, if you go to the website, where you can get it. The biggest problem with that book, as you probably found holding it up, Scott, it's large and heavy, isn't it?
It's a bit of a bugger. It's a bit of...
It's 108,000 words and 300 books. I sent a copy to Australia, and the postage was more than the book.
I can believe that. Just the sheer weight of it. But no, it is. It's a fantastic book, folks. And there's, I don't know, loads and loads and loads and loads of photographs in it. So definitely give it a look up. Give it a read, because it's well worth it. And it just, before you do work on your old muscles, because you need it to lift the bugger up. I mean, but I'll keep a hold of you just a wee second after we come up. But that's all right. So that's it for tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show, folks. I know I certainly did. It's always great having Mark in, and you will be seeing him again. So we'll be back on Tuesday night with Kate Frazee and John Ozuna for a paranormal chitty chat. But a major thanks to everybody that came in and your comments, etc. But a big thanks to Mark Egerton. I'm going to tell them your nickname. Mark, what's your nickname? What do people call you? I'll let you tell them.
Yeah, people call me Edge. People call me Edge or Edgy.
So a big thanks to the Edge. I think we'll just put that on post from now on. Join us tonight as we welcome back the Edge. What do you think? I think
you got U2 performing.
The edge is here. But we'll wind up there, folks. Thanks very much for coming in, and we'll bid you good night. So cheers for now. Bye. Bye.